Hello, this is David with Hanson Carlen. Today I'm working on a pocket door frame, and normally most people will use a Johnson pocket door which comes pre-assembled. On this project we want to use a Hafele product, and it's a pocket door frame that has some advantages over the Johnson. It offers soft close both ways so that the door will close slowly in and out, and it's a nice unit, a little more money than a Johnson, but on some projects it's worth it. So today I'm making the frame or the carrier to hold it. The thing with Hafele that it comes in right here, you'll see here's the track, and they're called a Slido track, and they make 3 or 4 different varieties depending on the weight of the door that you want to carry. In this case, we're carrying a hollow core, pretty light door, so it's the lighter track. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay out a full-scale drawing of what I want to do, and so I can see how it's going to work in real life. So if you look at this, I have a little piece of the track right here, and this track, it measures 1 5/16 inch thick. So what I did is I laid out it's going to go into a 2x4 wall cavity. So I laid out 3.5 inches for a 2x4 here. Now what I'm going to do is the rough framing is going to be up here, and I'm going to make a carrier for this out of probably some plywood. And so if you look here, what I've got going here is this would be the rough framing up here, and then you'd have this track body, which is 1 3/16, I think I said, and a 1 5/16, and then it requires 1 1/8 for the rollers from the bottom of this to the top of the door. So you can see I have the door drawn here, 1 3/8 door, and there would be about 5/16 of an inch of gap between this. So my drywall would go out here in this area here, and this will be what I'll screw my drywall to. So that's kind of my plan here. As I was doing this and thinking, my pocket door in this case, and so here representing here is my door. And I'm showing the door here, and this would be the edge of my framing here. I'm leaving myself 1/4 inch here in case I need to shim it straight from the rough framing. But this is going to be the first piece of the pocket assembly I'm making. I left a little space here in case I put a bumper on the door or something like that. But I laid my door out here so it's 2'4". When you come to here, these 2 pieces would represent what's going to carry the drywall. The drywall would be here, and here's my 2 finished pieces of trim. So I've got to keep this thing short so that when I finish it out, that I leave room for trim to come even with the door here. So then I laid this out. If I open the door, another 2'4" plus about 1/8 of an inch gets me here, and this would be my other finished piece of trim, looking at it down again from the top. And so when I measure the whole thing along here, I can see my rough opening needs to be about 58 1/4 inches for a 2-foot door. So that gives me the width. It gives me something to think about as I start cutting this thing out. I started out cutting my pieces out of some Baltic birch, or Euro ply, if you want to call it that. Look at all these plies in it. What's great about this stuff is that it's really strong, and in these cases, this sheet was nice and straight. So I'm going to build most of my frame out of this Baltic birch or Euro ply. This piece here represents my top, and it will go where the track is mounted on, up in the ceiling. It's 2 inches wide. This cut here, which is 3.5. And I'm going to run that up like this, and you can see that that's how that's going to go there. Designed for 3/4 inch that the drywall is going to screw to, but this side here is going to actually stick out, so the drywall will butt into this versus going over it. That way I can get at 1 1/4 I can get it more rigid for up and down to hold this. 1 1/4 on this Euro ply. I cut my pieces. Now I'm going to assemble them onto the top rail that I made. Remember, this piece is 2 inches. I don't know why. I'm probably doing a little overkill, but I'm gonna glue them. I countersink some holes here, and we'll screw these together like this. Get that nice and flush here. Okay, so we'll continue on gluing those. While I do that, I wanted to show you this over here. Here's my verticals. Remember, these two skinny ones are going to stick outside the drywall, and this is the edge. I laid them out here. I'm going to go with 4 pieces for the horizontal. So I've laid them out, you know, kind of like you build a wall here. And so they're laid out here. Here's where I'm making the X's is where I'm going to be putting the boards. I'll show you assembling that in a second. Assemble now, put this together. So I screwed and nailed this. This is where the trough is going to go. This is going to go on top of this. I pre-drilled these holes. You can see all of this done here so that I can put this together. But this is going to go up like this. And I'll screw that on there. And then here's the piece that's going to go on here. And remember how I told you that this is going to go the drywall is going to butt into this right here, and that's why it's 1 1/4 inches. So that's going to screw to that, and then these horizontals are going to see that's marked out. They're going to go and screw on like that, and so I'm going to assemble all this together now, and I'll show you more once it's done. On assembly, I've got these lower ones screwed together, a little glue, and you can see the screws go back in through here. So the question is how to do the upper ones. I had some extra material left from the top rail, so I'm just sticking that on there. That's gonna hold that up while I work on it and glue it. So now I can take, with those blocks you can see there, I can apply my little bit of glue. I've already got my holes countersunk, and I can put these together with very little effort at all. Make sure it's nice and even here. And very good. Assemble the other side. And I'm going to put I already pre-drilled the holes. You can see that with a countersink. I'm going to set a little glue on each one and get ready. And I've already got my marks because I laid the whole thing out beforehand. So I have these spacer blocks, so I'm just going to stick these out like this to hold it all to get up for me so I don't have to have a few hands. Now you can see I'm going to put this together, but remember how I was talking about that this part here, the drywall is going to butt into this instead of, and that gives me more rigidness on the thing. So that's how I'm going to do that, by sliding it over on this side of the table. Once I have this done, I'm going to flip it over and do the other side, and then I'll have part of my frame partially assembled. So now I have the frame pretty well done, and I'm getting ready to install the track. Now, I cut the track actually a little shorter than the top, about 1 inch. And I'll tell you why. Wick Temple, the architectural rep for Hafele, told me what's important is that if anything ever goes wrong with the system, that you're able to get the track out and replace the mechanism. And so I'm coming up with a way to be able to take the track out without taking the whole thing apart and taking my drywall off. What I'm doing is I'm taking, here's the inside pocket of the thing, and I'm going to take this block here, and this is going to go in here, and it's going to support this end of the track. I've got a short little piece of track there for demonstration purposes. To center the thing, I put 3/8 inch shims on each side, and that's what I needed there. This block is cut to about 15/16, which should not get in the way of the door, because the door will be sitting down below it by about 1 inch or 1 1/8 inches. This is going to hold this side of the track, thereby eliminating the need for fasteners inside the pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the track in here like this, centering it on here, and it's going to be short on this end a little bit, so that I can take, once the final trim, it's going to go right about here, so that I can take these screws out of this side of the track, slide it down like this, and it'll have a block on that end that holds it up, and that should allow me to be able to remove the track in the future date if I ever need to work on the mechanism. Before I install my track, I decided, I've got my block in there, I decided to put a couple of keeper blocks here that will hold the track in place, because remember, it's not going to get any screws on this end and inside the cup. I also then will be installing my final piece on the top of the header here for the part that's the open side of the door, and I'll screw and glue that on. So you can kind of see how the thing's looking here at this point. Finally, I'm ready to screw the track in. You see I have 3 holes that will be on the open side of the door that'll attach it, and then down there the back side will be held with the block. I'm using these temporary spacers here and here to hold my track exactly in the center as I screw it. This track is short here because when my trim goes in, it will come to about here, and I want to be able to slide the track down without removing all my trim should something go wrong. Okay, I've shimmed my header in 3 places here with some of those plastic shims. I'm right plumb here, perfectly good there. So now I took my track out temporarily to put screws in from the bottom side. So now I can put my track back right in, and this is what I would do if I was replacing the track in the future. It just slides in, and I'll just screw these 3 screws here so that it can be removed in the future should something go wrong.